Okay, well, welcome back to the specialist stage. The first panel this afternoon is on monetizing video, and it's going to be chaired by Laurie Benson. So Laurie's kind of background in media is very broad. She's worked for CNN, Time Europe, and most recently at Bloomberg. And she's kind of fascinated by the changing consumer experience in a digital world. So Laurie, I'll leave it to you to introduce the panel.
Good afternoon, everyone. And if the panel would please join me up here. So I'm lucky. I find myself once again in the post-lunch, pre-nap slot. But I think actually this topic is going to be lively enough that you will all wake up shortly. So bear with me. It seems to me, in listening to the conference the last few days, that the latest buzzword in media has been pivot to video. And I don't know. I don't know about how I feel about that. I don't know whether or not it's paying off. Our topic today is monetizing video, however, and it couldn't be more topical, and there's lots of things to think about. Some of the things I'd like to think about and like you to think about is there's been a lot of recent press about the dreaded words mid-roll. Will it ever pay off? Is it a good or a bad thing? There's reports of 15-cent CPMs on mid-roll. Another thing I think about is scale more important than potentially a well-crafted video, or scale? Another thing I think about is, are we going to work with the platforms of the world and create habits for consuming video on their platform rather than our own? And does that mean we're mortgaging our future? And the other thing also, because I don't believe print is dead, I also don't believe text is dead. And are we still making most of our money on text in the digital world, or is it really video? So those are the kinds of things I'm thinking about, some of which our panel will address, and some of it I'm hoping you will ask about. We've got a very diverse panel today in some ways, and also not others, because you happen to have 4 Americans standing before you. So our apologies for the accents. But also this is an interesting panel because we have publishers who are beginning to act like broadcasters, and we have somebody from the broadcasting industry starting to act like a publisher. So everything is being turned around for all elements of the media world today. So I'm going to start with introducing them. On my right, I have Angie Byun, correct? She's the Senior Director of International Development and Strategy at Golf Digest in the States, but she's responsible for the international element of it. To her right is Kristin Cardwell. Kristin is the VP of International and Strategy Development for Refinery 29, which has been around now for 2 years?
Just over 10 years.
Oh, 10 years, okay. I've known about it for 2. I think that's when they came over here. So her new role is international growth, expansion, and diversification. And then on the end, last but not least, we have Andy Crofoot. And Andy's the head of digital distribution and partnerships at Endemol Shine Group. So Andy doesn't come from the publishing world. So it'll be very interesting to hear Andy's take on video in today's digital world. So I'm going to start with Angela. Angela, it's interesting because you are the one person on this panel who's coming from a legacy print product, who's having that traditional trajectory on how we went digital and now how we take advantage of video, et cetera. But also you have to take this strategy and take it internationally. So what I want to hear about is how are you handling this international expansion of Golf Digest, including the new idea of video?
Thanks, Laurie. So we have 30 international editions of Golf Digest on 5 continents. We reach an audience of 10 million, and most of the content that our international partners are using is coming from the United States. And the main reason people come to Golf Digest in the US and worldwide is because they essentially want to know how to play, where to play, and what to play with. So instruction content is key. As we expand internationally, we're finding that whether you're in Tokyo or Mexico City, you as a golfer and as a golf enthusiast want to improve your game. So the video content that we create is somebody who doesn't necessarily speak English can really understand the content, and it's quite evergreen as well because whether you want to fix your slice or drive longer, you're constantly trying to improve your game, so it's not like the content gets stale or old. Should I talk about the rights?
Yeah, well, and what I want to know is, what did you learn? Because not that many people have gone very far in taking their video internationally yet. So I'd like to hear about your lessons learned from that.
Right. So I think first and foremost, if you are creating content and you are also thinking internationally, from the outset with your editors, with your content creators, your videographers, you should think about how we can really broadcast this internationally. What we learned through Growing Pains is you really need to secure the rights before you can even start to think about selling, distributing, marketing the content. So if you don't have international reuse rights, you can't sell it. And so in our contracts that we have with whoever is creating content for us, or whether it's a personality, whether it's an instructor, we ask for exclusive worldwide rights at no additional cost. And some of the various folks agree to it, some don't, but for the most part, because the content creators and also folks that are in our videos want to be affiliated with Golf Digest, they do accept our terms.
I'm sure Andy will want to comment on that in a second. Next to Kristin, Refinery 29, it's been around for 10 years, but internationally only a couple. And so for many in this crowd, can you tell us a little bit about it? Because not everyone is as familiar.
Sure. So at Refinery 29, we produce content and tell stories through the lens of women. And simply put, we say our mission is to inspire, represent, progress, and entertain women around the world. Just over 10 years ago, we actually started out as sort of an indie-style influencer. From there, we grew to become known as more of a digital publisher. And now we're really more of a full-fledged media company, kind of creating content that's not just about style, but is about everything that she's interested in. So everything from style to news to sports to politics, you name it. And we've seen tremendous growth. We create content that's globally resonant. We now have 600 people working around the globe between New York, LA, Toronto, London, and Berlin. We have an extremely global audience. About 40% of our audience comes from outside of the US, and we have a reach of 550 million globally. And we've really been able to do it because we speak to our audience wherever she is. We create for every platform. We program for every platform. So, we're not just a website. We're also, we were early on Snapchat Discover. We're always leaning into new platforms like Facebook Watch. We have partnerships in the UK with Sky Q and in the US with Verizon Go90. And we're creating experiential, in real life experiences for our consumers and creating everything from short form content to short films now. And so, as you can see, we've really invested very heavily in video. Over the last 3 years, video has become a huge, huge focus for us. And it's really paying off. So during that time, we've seen a 500% increase in video views. We've now sold video products to over 300 advertisers around the globe, and they come back to us year over year. And finally, our licensing business is really taking off as well. We're on track for 8 figures this year, and we believe that will double next year.
Is that licensing your video?
Yep.
Okay, so you, at the moment, though, you own and operate all of your international properties.
Yes.
Okay, which is a fairly unusual way to go about it, but I guess it gives you more control over that content in those markets. Thank you. So Andy, you create long-form programming. And it's very interesting to me because you're a traditional broadcasting model person sitting in a room full of people who are traditional publishers or digital publishers. Most of the people in this room have a problem with creating enough video and enough scale to feed this video desire. My guess is you've got more video than you know what to do with.
Well, definitely.
Yeah.
That's not a problem for us, thankfully.
Can you tell the panel a little bit about why you came over here. He's relocated from the States a couple of years ago with a mission to take Endemol Shine's programming to different audiences, and it's a fairly innovative way to think for broadcasting.
Well, thanks, Laura. It's a pleasure to be here today. It's funny, we've been making video when it was still called television, right? Like as an entity, people don't really know Endemol Shine Group very well globally. They know our television shows. So we make everything from MasterChef and Big Brother to Peaky Blinders, Broadchurch, everything in between, Deal or No Deal. So for us as a company, we're quite traditional in our space, right? So instead of being a publisher, we are a traditional producer of content, just a different kind of content. And typically our clients have been broadcast television stations. And one thing we're finding increasingly is that our new clients, while we're still maintaining a very heavy presence across broadcast, our new clients are becoming subscription video services, are becoming social media, actually, as these entities begin to commission content. So for all intents and purposes, the reason I came over was to really get a better handle on what we're doing as a company and how we can meet these new challenges as the landscape is changing so quickly. So for us, part of that is how do we address new commissions across these different platforms, and how do we make sense of the 100,000 or so hours of content that we have from producing Big Brother in 55 countries around the world. So we increasingly are finding that social media is a very interesting place to take a look at that video and to really try to optimize it and find the most value.
Are you taking your long-form programming and repurposing it somehow for the social media feeds?
Definitely. I mean, I think that there's so many benefits to creating a presence on social media, some of which are direct monetization, but some of it is just brand building like anyone else would do, right? Because I think there was a panel earlier today, Carla from Facebook said something around just the value of shares as a metric that you get favored in the Facebook algorithm. So if you're building a good-sized audience and you're creating compelling content, for instance, on Facebook, if a good portion of that audience is sharing that content across to friends and other folks, that's going to help you grow your reach, right? So it's sort of this beautiful cycle, a virtuous cycle of you create more content, people share it, it extends your reach, it allows you to actually see a lot more revenue. So for us at least, we're starting to find that creating a lot more buzz around the new programs that we have and around our legacy programs such as Mr. Bean and things of that nature, it really benefits us in a lot of ways across the long tail.
And how will you handle the language issue as you look internationally?
It's a challenge, right? I mean, I think initially, Big Brother, for instance, I think I mentioned earlier, don't quote me on this, but it's made in somewhere around 55 different countries around the world. So we do have local versions in a lot of those different countries. But as far as taking Mr. Bean, for instance, and localizing it for territories, it's something we're working on really perfecting now and building our own in-house systems to be able to distribute that content more effectively. Because frankly, people want to consume it where they want to consume it, when they want to consume it, and we need to give it to them, not just through broadcast television.
I think that's been one of the big lessons of our digital transformation is that we no longer dictate how our media will be consumed, but our consumers will decide how they'll interact with us. It's a lesson that I think a lot of people have been slow to learn. Kristin, I want to go back to you because Refinery 29 is an early adapter of a lot of platforms, and you actually do diversify your content across these platforms. So you're already in Facebook mid-roll, I believe.
Yes.
So I'm kind of curious how that's working out for you so far and your thoughts on the future of it, because it's been quite a lot of press about whether it's working or not. So what's been your experience so far?
Sure. I mean, with Facebook, we have a really good relationship, and we're really bullish about mid-roll. And right now, it's still early days, so I don't think that we're in a position yet to comment on long-term revenue potential, but we are making money through mid-roll, and we're continuing to lean into mid-roll. At the same time, we monetize Facebook video in many different ways. So we create branded content for all of our advertiser partners, and that lives not just on our own channels, but we of course distribute across Facebook. We also have very specific channels designed for Facebook. So we create content that's short form, highly visual, highly global, and highly shareable for Facebook. One example is our channel called Shortcuts. It's a short form makeup tutorial channel, and it's a very easy way to integrate products into the content directly, many different kind of branded videos, and again, highly visual, no sound, language agnostic, travels really well around the globe. We also are a part of Facebook Watch, which just launched. And we're really proud to say that we are one of the first on the new platform. It's only launched in the US, but Facebook has plans to roll it out internationally as well. And that's really their premium destination for premium content, scripted and non-scripted. And we've licensed 5 shows to Facebook. And one that I wanted to highlight is a show called Strangers. And this is really not one of our first forays into scripted, but probably one of our biggest scripted pieces. It was done, we co-produced it with a company called Beachside and with the executive producer of Girls from HBO. And it tells the story of these millennial women in LA kind of exploring life and growing up, and the main character essentially, she cheats on her boyfriend with a woman, and she's trying to kind of explore her sexuality and what that means. And once he moves out, she has to figure out a way to pay for her rent. So she has all of these strangers coming to her home, and every episode is a new stranger, and some great casting there with each stranger. We have Jemima Kirk from HBO Girls in that as well. So doing many, many things on Facebook, very leaned into the platform.
I asked Kristin to speak about sex just to make sure you were all awake. Okay. So I want to go back to this Facebook Watch concept. As I understand it, it's as though it's a traditional broadcast production model deal. You pitch an idea, and Facebook is actually underwriting the production costs, as I understand it. So when I hear that, I just wonder, if that's the case, is Facebook really that altruistic, willing to underwrite the cost of production, or are we building their long-form business for them with our content?
So we've licensed shows to Facebook. It's a traditional licensing model. Okay. And for us, we're not worried about, as you put it, sort of the threat of Facebook growing its platform. We're speaking to every platform. We're creating content, and developing shows for all of the new major players, for SVODs, OTT platforms, TV. So I think we're very diverse in the platforms that we work with, and very leaned into Facebook. But again, focused everywhere on creating for everything, wherever our audience is.
So the monetization in this case is a license fee, which is something that most digital publishers is a completely foreign idea. So that's a new model to look at. I want to go back to one last question for Angie before we open it up. Because you come from the traditional broadcast world or media world and publishing world, I imagine there's financial challenges, which are, because you are responsible for Golf Digest in print, but also the digital and video, et cetera, as well. How are you able to invest in your video product and keep the other elements and management happy?
That's a great question. So I think for us, Golf Digest being part of Condé Nast, we do have many resources in terms of having our own content creation studio called 23 Stories that we can lean on. It's our own in-house creative agency. But you'd be surprised, not all videos are expensive to make. We have everything from Facebook Lives to Snapchat Stories to branded content series. And even using our archival content, we have found to be quite popular. So, if you have photos, you can have a slideshow of photos and add text. Recently, we had one of those videos of just comprised of photos overlaid with text, the theme being, will Tiger Woods play this week? And that garnered over 2 million views. So, being creative with your content, I think, is key. Really, if you have really great storytellers, it definitely adds to the value of the content. So you don't necessarily have to have these huge budgets to create video content, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Well, and you touched on the text question, which is interesting because you're basically giving your users the option of reading it or watching the video and listening
Right,
to it.
right.
So you're giving them both options.
Yes, yes. And we find that in social media, most people are not listening to the sounds. They're just looking at images with subtitles or text.
Interesting. So time has already ticked back. We've got a few minutes left. And I thought with this topic there would be lots of questions for this group. So I am going to just open it up now to see if anybody would like to ask this panel a question. I'm going to be shocked if there are no questions. No? Okay. If you've seen this so far, you speak into the black bit.
Hi. My question is for Kristin in terms of Facebook mid-roll and your audience. What percentage of users are you seeing abandoning content once they're served a mid-roll ad?
We're actually not seeing high abandonment rates at all, which maybe is surprising, but it's working pretty well for us. I think we're still experimenting and we're always testing and learning to try to figure out, what's the exact right moment to place mid-roll, because you do have that choice as a publisher, which is great. And so you have to be really strategic about where you put it. You want to put it in a place where the user's kind of gotten into the video and feels hooked and needs to wait for the next moment. So no, again, very bullish on mid-roll at this point.
So mid-roll doesn't really have to be mid-video?
Well, it has to be in the middle of the video, but
the timing is up to you.
The timing is, it varies.
Yeah, Laurie, can I just jump in here?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, no, I think we're a part of the program as well, and I think increasingly this has been something that's been encouraging us. We've started to see a lot of success with it to take a lot of our archival content, older series that people knew and loved at one point, and clip that up into smaller, more bite-sized pieces so people can watch it wherever they want to, right? On the bus, in Manila, as much as they can be, walking down the street in Palm Springs, right? It's that idea of find that audience. And so actually having a direct monetization path across something like mid-roll ad breaks, it's really attractive because I think being able to place it where you'd like it, you can retain still a great user experience, right? You generally, you can't place it at the very beginning of the video. So finding that key moment in an editorial fashion, we're finding helps with retention a lot.
So Andy,
and I would echo.
go ahead.
Great for evergreen content. Yeah,
So-
absolutely.
Andy, you're in the unique situation where you actually don't have a destination site for the discovery of your content.
That's right.
So
yeah.
do you become almost the ad within somebody else's video?
Sort of. We're fairly agnostic from a platform perspective, right? We want to try to be wherever the audience is already, right? So we're looking for opportunities where there's a scale size of an audience, and really we want to uncover whatever their focus is based on a genre, right? So if that's something broad like a Facebook, we're going to do whatever we can to try to optimize the experience across that. But ultimately what it comes down to is, people knew and loved these shows at one point. They still do in some instances, and so basically being able to take a good look at that archive and sort of reinvigorate that interest benefits us in many ways, right? Sometimes you can even get a show that's maybe been off the air for a number of years recommissioned if you start to see a lot of activity across a show page for some legacy content.
Any more questions from the audience? No? So I want to just go back to this idea of scale versus quality. It seems to me that the idea that you had to have scale partly was an old-fashioned idea before we started delivering impressions one by one in front of somebody's nose this close. It almost came from a 1960s television mentality. Big was better. Do we really need scale, or should we bring them to a smaller universe and give them really high quality? So I'd like to know what you think about that.
Yeah, so what we're experimenting in the United States, or not even experimenting at this point, but we are putting certain videos, instructional content really, behind a paywall. So we're finding that, as we're studying our audience, they come, time and time after again for instruction content, and now we're starting to put in the United States various tutorials behind a paywall. We're going to have various levels as far as pricing, but to your point, it may not necessarily mean all the eyeball, or gathering all the eyeballs to our site, but really selective folks for whatever reason, coming to our site, giving them different options.
And can you get a premium for selling advertising behind that paywall?
Yes, yes.
Ah.
So that's our strategy.
And do you have that kind of a no paywalls?
No paywalls. No, I think the scale versus quality question is interesting. I think it's important to balance both. You know, I had mentioned some of our Facebook first channels are really designed to drive scale, and they're meant to be global pieces of content that are, again, language agnostic, highly visual, all about driving scale. At the same time, you know, if we're thinking about quality programming, I don't feel like, you know, we make a compromise when we're thinking about scale versus quality. You know, I'm thinking about our Shatterbox anthology series in particular. It's a short film series that we decided to invest in, highlighting new female directors. And it was something that we really believed in, and it's something that, you know, perhaps could be deemed niche, but believed in it, invested in the directors, ran it on our channels, and also partnered with Comcast Watchable for Series 1. And worked with some amazing directors like Kristin Stewart and Chloe Sevigny, well-known actresses, first-time directors. That choice to invest and maybe have that, you know, very quality content with a smaller audience paid off. I mean, very high consumption and engagement with the content. And actually in season 2, we're now partnering with a major TV player. So TNT is going to broadcast season 2. So we'll actually be able to bring that to a much larger audience. And I think, you know, for us, it's all about just investing in quality content when we really believe in it. And
So that's the tie. So
right, and
I'll leave
a larger audience when we can.
No more time for questions. So we'll end it there with what we started out with is publishers have become broadcasters, broadcasters have become publishers, nothing as it was before, and off we go into the deep with it together. So thank you all. Thank you to the panel. If you'd give them your thanks, please. And the committee.